Now we have a panel discussion on how will the growing last mile delivery transform the Indian e-commerce ecosystem. I would like to welcome Ramesh Venkat, Head Industry Partnerships, Logistics Skill Council, to moderate the discussion. Over to you, Mr. Venkat.
Hi, everyone. This is Ramesh Venkat from Logistics Sector Skill Council. It's truly a pleasure to be a part of ET Retail Supply Chain Conclave. We are here to bring out the perspectives on various plethora of topics on e-commerce, logistics, supply chain, gender diversity, academia. And I'm sure you'd enjoy this session. So Mr. Abhinav Singh is the Director, Indian Customer Fulfillment Supply Chain and Global Specialty Fulfillment. So I request him to share his view about his organization and the stream that he's specializing on. Over to you, Mr. Abhinav.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ramesh. And it's a pleasure to be with all of you today. So I work at Amazon. Been here for about 10 years, have had the opportunity to work across product, technology, and now operations, where I lead customer fulfillment, supply chain operations, as well as our specialty fulfillment, which is ultra-fast, fresh, and same-day deliveries.
Thank you, Mr. Abhinav. Now we move on to Mr. Aashutosh. Mr. Aashutosh, he heads the regional business for Big Basket. Over to you, Mr. Aashutosh.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Rameshji. Thank you.
Yeah.
I currently work with bigbasket.com. I head their Mumbai business, where there are multiple lines of businesses that I handle in terms of B2B and B2C. We also have varied levels of fulfillment, like the normal full service delivery. We also have something called a instant vending machine business. We have a BB Daily, which is a milk subscription business, and so on. Right? So all these businesses finally line up to me. And overall, we identify ourselves as an e-grocer more than an e-commerce company, and we love fulfilling the grocery needs of our customer. So thank you, Ramesh, for giving me some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Aashutosh. Now we invite Mr. Sanjeev Mehta, who's Head E-commerce Center of Excellence, Udaan. Mr. Sanjeev.
Hello, everyone. It's a privilege to be here and also to meet friend and ex-colleague Sarvartha. I work at Udaan and I head what we call the e-commerce center of excellence. Udaan is about making the B2B ecosystem for India, heavily powered by technology. And this ecosystem kind of spreads across supply chain fulfillment, payments, digital finance, and the marketplace and selection. As a part of my role, I kind of bring together cross capabilities, which are spread across product, technology, industrial engineering, safety, ways of working, 5S, etc. Because for us, ultimately, it's the combination of all these things which kind of make a meaningful impact to the customers and to the associates who work with us. So thanks once again for having me here and look forward to interacting with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev Mehta. Now over to Mr. Rajneesh Goel, who's the Chief Supply Chain Officer of Licious. I welcome Mr. Rajneesh.
Hello, hi everyone. This is Rajnish, and really pleasure to be with all of you. I see a lot of vertical experts. It will be such a massive learning experience. Looking forward to it. So it's been nice. So many years of working experience, largely been with the FMCG space with the likes of GSK, Reckitt, Marico. It's only for last 16 odd months that I am the part and parcel of this e-commerce space and loving every second of the excitement of this journey that I'm part of. So I'm the Chief Supply Chain Officer, and I take care of right from, as we say, from farm to fork. So from planning, sourcing, manufacturing, logistics, including the last mile and projects, is what I take care in Licious. And Licious, I'm sure mostly all of you would have heard about Licious.
Thank you, Mr. Rajneesh. Now I request Mr. Sarvatha Kanchan, who is the Vice President, Supply Chain, Customer and Seller Services and Experience from Snapdeal.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me and excited to be here. My name is Sarvartha, so yeah, I kind of pronounce it once so that everyone gets it right. And yeah, thank you. And I head the entire fulfillment services for Snapdeal. So yeah, excited to be here. Looking forward to learning from all of you and in whatever small manner I can contribute. Excited to see Sanjeev sir. He has been a mentor in Flipkart. He's been very, very kind. He was the one who I think was responsible for a lot of innovations that we did back then and probably a lot of things that I'm doing today as well. So yeah, thank you.
Lovely to have you both. And now I request Ms. Shikha, Director, Unilever. Please, Shikha.
Namaskar, everyone. I'm Shikha, and I've been with Unilever for almost 12 years now. As far as my role is concerned, I work for Global Unilever and across all these markets and categories. And my key job is to work at innovations, digital commerce, and consumer and customer. I'm extremely delighted to be here today among some stalwarts of the industry. So look forward to the discussion today.
Great to have you. Thank you so much. I now request Mr. Ankeet Bhat. Mr. Ankeet Bhat is, he's been with MapmyIndia and heading as Chief Strategy Officer. Over to you, Mr. Ankeet.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramesh, and thank you for having me on this panel. Very excited to be part of this. Everyone here and almost every product that everyone, the company that everyone represents here, we use in our daily lives and every service. About myself, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at MapmyIndia, and MapmyIndia is India's largest mapping and location technology company. We build 2D, 3D, 4D, HD, demographics, a lot of mapping data, and we build that in real time. And most of these insights pour into many systems that that most of you guys are kind of using, and we kind of focus on building extremely rich mapping data that can be utilized for many use cases all across the country.
So thank you, Ankeet. Now I invite Mr. Arugulsrani, who's the Regional Director, ServiceNow.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramesh. Namaskar, everyone. I'm Rubel Views. I work for ServiceNow. Most of you would have heard of ServiceNow, but just to give a perspective about ServiceNow, we are one of the Fortune 2000 company and the only company which is a platform of platform, growing over 30% year over year on a base of $5.5 billion of revenue, in organically, not inorganically. And we work with our customers and try to innovate the customer experience, the backend systems, getting rid of the technical debt which the organizations would have accumulated over a period of time, and help them innovate in their field services, in their risk platforms, and also the employee experiences. So there's a varied set of operations and offerings which we have across the platform. And happy to share with you all that we also have 80% plus coverage for Fortune 2000 companies. So a lot of large enterprises across the globe work closely with us, and pleasure to be here among all the bright minds from the country. Thank you.
Been a pleasure having you, Mr. Rubal. Now my first question goes to Mr. Abhinav Singh. The question is, how will growing last mile deliveries transform the Indian e-commerce system?
Thank you for the question. If you look at the last mile space in the e-commerce context, it's the only real connect with the customer. That's where the company or the organization meets with the customer. And that doorstep experience is critical, both for the customer and the organization. So the criticality of the space in the e-commerce ecosystem is immense. It's also a space where there is a requirement for, and there is a lot of investment in technology solutions. We were just speaking about address technology, which is certainly one of the key enablers of route optimization and other forms of efficiency solutions, but also in terms of safety solutions, things like making sure that speed limit indicators are there, the right nudges and pushes to make sure the right safety behavior is followed. At Amazon, we are also experimenting in technology solutions that interlock helmet wearing if it's a two-wheel delivery. So it's a space where there's a lot of invention and innovation going on in terms of technology. In terms of creation of jobs, whether it's an independent contractor with models such as the Amazon Flex model, or it is a small and medium business where we have delivery service partners who deliver for us across the country, the length and breadth of the country, actually, from Leh all the way to Andaman. Or it is stores. In 420 cities, we have 28,000 stores, which are our delivery partners. So as an employment creation opportunity, the last mile space has immense potential. And finally, from the perspective of making it the last sort of place where we transform from being an energy consuming business to one where we drive sustainability, whether it's in the form of electric vehicles, which are 3-wheel, 4-wheel, or 2-wheel electric vehicles. So the last mile delivery space is certainly one of the places where there is invention, there is large job creation, and a huge opportunity to make the business more sustainable.
Thank you so much. And I would now invite Mr. Aashutosh, pretty much on the same question. How will the growing last mile delivery transform the Indian e-commerce ecosystem?
So the way the country is growing, right? I mean, I think the whole advent of e-commerce was inevitable, right? The whole ecosystem was supposed to move towards this space, and the pandemic has only pushed the whole channel, right? So e-commerce means any commerce that you do online, right? So technically, the way we are doing this conference also is a part of the e-commerce. We're trying to generate some revenue by interacting online, right? So the advent of moving to e-commerce was inevitable, and this whole wave will only actually gain its own ground once the last mile gets optimized, right? It's literally like a cricket match, where the final action always happens in the slog overs. It doesn't matter how much you do in the power play, the final action will always boil down to what happens in the slog overs, the final overs. And that is how the last mile will shape up. How we optimize our last mile will eventually decide how much of a speed of execution we can bring into the whole game of deliveries. And it's literally as simple as this. So I work in a industrial belt near Mumbai. I stay in Bhiwandi, and a few months back, when it was a rainy season, there was traffic all around, right? And I started leaving to my home, and at the same time I had a call with my brother who was trying to leave from Delhi, and he reached home before me, by the way, right? So because I was moving on the last mile and he was moving on the first mile, right? And that is how the whole pain area for anyone happens in the last mile, and optimizing for the last mile is the only way to optimize for the entire supply chain. So that's my view on this.
Thank you. Now I invite Mr. Sanjeev Mehta on why the last mile is the costliest mile in terms of cost, time, and what are the measures, metrics that needs to be constituted. Over to Mr. Sanjeev.
I actually, my view is very contrarian. My view is actually last mile is not the costliest mile. Yeah. I think Abhinav already brought about what kind of moment of truths the last mile generates with the customer, right?
Sure.
So I actually think the kind of customer data point it generates, they're immensely powerful. And these customer data points are not only about directly the customer, so about customer profile, what is his behavior, even simple things like when does he have cash, who's at the shop in his morning, right? And going all the way from there to the second and third order and fourth order derivative products, right? So all these data points are generated by last mile. So there's immense value, and actually you cannot put a price to it. I'll actually give you an example. Udaan, we had a case that somebody during the catalog had put an attribute wrong. And just because of a technology stack, we were able to pick up in 2 deliveries that there was a price issue on one of the oil packets that we had shipped. A couple of cases where we also found out, for example, there was a mild damage to the product during the process of inverting. So the cost of last mile actually is much smaller to the kind of value and the second and third order derivative it generates. I also want to add one more thing. I think the cost traditionally has been looked in purview of the traditional design of the last mile. Most of the last mile design today has been little bit of its root in manufacturing, a bit like assembly line. So most of the last mile network today is hub and spoke. A lot of that cost also has to do with somewhat rigidity of that design. So I think what is also important is to start looking at our designs internally and think about, with the new paradigm, the new categories that we are going after, the new kind of product portfolios, the new kind of cities in Bharat, what is the last mile design? I think one dimension that we really look at Udaan is how flexible and fungible that last mile design is. So for example, take pandemic. Pre-pandemic, if you were delivering 100 kgs to a customer, and I'm making 100 kgs up, during the pandemic, due to working capital, we were delivering 10 kgs. Now, if you have a very rigid supply chain design, I think obviously the cost will spike up. So I think the key to the cost is also how to look at that design. So for me, in a nutshell, I think the key is not to look at the cost. The key is to look at how do we get the ROI from some of these, what I call the moment of truths from the customer. And of course, looking at moving to a flexible approach of design rather than a slightly rigid design that a lot of supply chains have today. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. So though you started off in a contrarian way, I think it was very well justified. Thank you. And I now invite Rajnish to share his views about how the conventional kind of business has completely disrupted and transformed into a convenience one. Over to you, Mr. Rajneesh.
So this is, on this question, so last mile, and as Aashutosh was saying, this entire space has got massively disrupted thanks to pandemic. Something which would have taken maybe 3 to 4 years got consummated in close to less than a year for the industry. So, what this e-commerce space in last mile, well supported by last mile, what it is doing is, it is giving that convenience to customer they probably were not even aware of, right? So this is one need. So if you see why e-commerce was, while it was still getting disrupted, the way it was attacking the traditional trade, but still there was some barriers in terms of the convenience of a kirana, something that existed, which was kind of a barrier to get into that space. And look at today, even Licious, and you look at Swiggy and Zomato and others, Zepto, there are 10 minutes delivery promises, while some of it could be a very, very crazy proposition from a unit economic standpoint. And this is all being done for customer acquisition today. But soon there will be a charge for some of these services, and still my take is customers will still be willing to pay for these, given the convenience angle that they were not aware of. And people are lapping onto these services. I've seen how Licious has grown, multifold in this pandemic, and Zomato being listed. We all see the numbers in the newspaper and ET to begin with. So that's the disruption that is taking place in this space.
Thank you. Now I invite Sarvatha. What are your perspectives in the current pace of innovation and changing needs of the ecosystem? Over to you, Sarvatha.
Thank you. I think a kind of entire aspect on how the innovation on last mile is required is kind of covered very well by Abhinav. So honestly, I don't have much to add than the fact that most of the innovation that's happening on the last mile side. And just now, Rajnish also mentioned about 10 minutes delivery and all of that, right? I think a lot of that kind of happens because of the fundamental concept of turnaround time, right? How fast are you able to turn around the inventories that you have? And I think it's important that we, as the technology progresses, you have the right clustering being done. You have the right network locations being identified. You also have the in a way a systemic assignment of agents, a sequencing, right, of how things should be done. I think a lot in terms of technology innovation is required for us to be able to do the last mile part well. But to add to it, I think it's actually I mean, if you look at how to optimize the delivery of goods in a cost effective way, I think ultimately it all comes to the concept. I think once Sanjeev only pointed that out, it's a concept of marginal utility, right? I remember that conversation with Sanjeev very vividly. So I think the concept of marginal utility today has taken a very big meaning, right? I think if you look at marginal utilization, it's no longer about utilizing your own assets for yourself in different ways. It's actually can be very, very disruptive if we can build a platform where we can start using each other resources, right? We can start ensuring that the resources are being utilized to the maximum, because that's going to be the most important piece. Ultimately, one is how you are doing your costing and how are you looking at each leg of your supply chain in terms of what the cost contribution is. And the other thing is also being able to utilize it well. Today, I feel the way the conventional industry has been going about building things, just build everything on your own. I feel a lot of these can change, and a disruption is just around the corner where we can start harnessing the ecosystem. We can start harnessing the available resources that are there in the ecosystem. Today, we are just looking at our own self and saying, how can we do it better, right? But I think somewhere we have to start thinking, how can the entire ecosystem do it better for us? And I think that is where the main crux of the matter is.
Thank you, Sarvatha. Now I invite Shikha. Please do share as you did mention that more than 60% of logistic companies agree that last mile delivery is the most efficient process. And how do we bring out the challenges, bottlenecks, various things factoring unpredictability, accuracy? Over to you, Shikha.
Thanks, Ramesh. And I'll actually pick on a point what Sarvatha just mentioned. I think about 15 years back, the mobile industry, especially the tower industry, was in a similar space when they started utilizing and building assets together because it was expensive to have, diesel generators and everything together. So you'll see a single tower hosting, different telecom companies. And I think that's a very thought-provoking thing, what you just said. So maybe some similarities there. But I do feel that today we talk about last mile delivery, in context of digital commerce. And if you really look at, how and where it's used, it's primarily for digital commerce, grocery, non-grocery, retail, and for omni-channel. And I think this space is not the cherry on the cake anymore. It is the new cake. And same is for, last mile delivery. One of the best parts of this journey is the moment we all strive for, which is when the consumers lay their hands on the long sought after, much anticipated item we ordered, and hence I somewhere feel that the industries that thrive on last mile delivery and how last mile delivery will develop because of these industries. It's a very symbiotic kind of a relationship. But if you really look at how it operates and the logistics, how it works. Simply, if you look at the numbers, I was reading somewhere, it's anticipated that the last mile delivery logistics companies and the kind of volume they'll carry will triple in another 2 years. And today, these last mile delivery logistics companies or otherwise, the companies that are doing it on their own, they will not just remain there. They will essentially become a service company, which has got technology at the heart of it. So basically, a service company with a technology company mindset and offering, and platforms that offer those solutions to reduce the cost and complexity. Of course, automation, and that automation will need to run across the value network far beyond just the warehouses and the sorting centers and how our goods travel across the value network. even if I talk about some of the things that Abhinav also talked about, which is connected vehicles, electric vehicles, telematic technologies, I think there will be a lot of other industries that will start to prosper and grow. And hence, I actually feel that last mile delivery, digital commerce, omni-channel, the differentiation will come through the intersection of the service offering, underlying cost structure, and the technology platform. And this will also then mushroom into some of the other companies really thriving around this entire ecosystem.
Thank you. I think you beautifully encapsulated all the various functionalities. I now invite Mr. Ankeet to share his thoughts on how good and accurate maps help solve the last mile, mid-mile. Would you like to share your perspective, Mr. Ankeet?
Yep, thanks, Ramesh. This is actually a very interesting topic because we've studied it thoroughly, and when we saw that the infrastructure that's required to essentially make sure a delivery happens and happens fast, quick, accurately, it's huge. And essentially that infrastructure starts with just making sure that as something is being delivered, the entry point of where you're delivering it, whether it's a unit, it's a house, that's super accurate. And that and if it's a large complex, then within those large complex there are so many units, and actually are you actually reaching the unit through the right route, and are those units even mapped out? So what we've seen from a mapping perspective essentially is that last mile is one of the most complex and custom scenarios of actually mapping. It's I wouldn't say a generic map would solve it, because the way we're kind of experimenting with the tech with a lot of companies, and a lot of companies actually even utilized it, is the map gets extremely complex, and it gets very customized at that last mile. Some examples, as we learned, were not only different like types of vehicles. So there are bikes, there would be, and there are different types of behaviors of drivers, but also the fact that a route that is taken by, and this is funny because we see it through our algorithms, and when we are matching it, and as customers are also looking at it, a driver just switches on an app that a consumer would also use, which is you and I, which might be Google Maps, but the driver actually follows something else altogether. And depending on the kind of route that he needs, because he needs to deliver on time, and probably the last mile brain has planned something else. So you plan something for your mobility, and then the driver takes a different route. This is a very common thing, right, which you've seen. So the navigation that he follows is different, and these are, especially in quick commerce, we've seen some of this. Maybe for for other forms not as much, but everything gets very customized. So essentially at that form, you need kind of a layer on top of the maps that learns basis what what routes are being followed, and then essentially make sure that the delivery metrics get even better. So that is a huge differentiation we've seen, and that requires a very customized approach to mapping, not a very generic approach to mapping. And obviously not a consumer approach to mapping, a very enterprise approach to mapping. That's one thing that I think really moves things forward. Also, stuff like safety and potholes, and these are all hyperlocal things in India. So if you have all of that mapped, you could better estimate how how people could actually get to that last mile. So that's our understanding around mapping. And also addresses are extremely complex, and as you go deeper into India, they get even more complex. So even having that address geolocated very well gets extremely important. And even the phones that are utilized by delivery folks, they may not be very expensive phones, so they don't fix GPS very well. So you might just even if you think that the person is actually saying that he's reached that place, the location that you're actually seeing might be like 300-400 meters off. So how do you solve for all those corrections? So it is from a finding an address, to finding the right route, to guiding the guy properly, all the way to also making sure that the sensing of the actual location is accurate. All of these are technology problems that I think good and highly accurate maps can solve. So that's our learning and understanding.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, we move on to Mr. Rubel. In fact, ServiceNow caters to almost most of the captains of logistics and e-commerce industry. What is your point of view on the technical management debts as a service now, especially on the COO, which is Chief Operational Officer's functions, with low code or no code? Could you please elaborate on that, Mr. Rubel?
Sure, sure, Ramesh. Thank you so much. And I have to, say that, very thought-provoking views which we have received, what Shikha just mentioned and Abhinav started with, Sarvartha, Sanjeev, Aashutosh, Rajnish, and Ankeet, I guess can't agree, more than that with all of your views. But, I'm just making the notes, what I heard is, moments that matter for your customers, pivoting business models if the need arises, or automation, which Shikha mentioned. SLA management is one thing which is definitely required, because that would again, mean a lot in terms of, customer experience, etc., loyalty of customers. And it happens to all of us in our daily life also, because I guess all the services from whether it is Amazon, Licious, Snapdeal, Big Basket. In my personal life also, I'm a consumer for all of all of your services. Whether it is MapmyIndia device also, which is there in my car, and Unilever, I guess there won't be even a single household in the country which might not be using, right? Rerouting, handshake with third parties. Shikha mentioned again a very important point about leveraging each other's assets. Sarvartha also, kind of mentioned about that. Problem management, we use that term a lot in IT. If there is a issue which is happening and it continues to happen, how quickly we can find it and resolve it so that we don't lose the customers. All of those things we see, our customers are trying to solve with siloed applications or siloed solutions, which is, when the company is small, it is fine because the frugal innovation is happening. But once you reach a certain scale, it is very important to have a single platform which we can touch the origination of customer journey till the last mile, and then do the reverse logistics back to the starting point. And that is where platforms are being very important. And that is the problem which we are solving for our customers. Not only, just not only in the last mile space, but end to end, because end of the day, customer service, why we are trying to do last mile delivery? We are trying to do last mile delivery to improve our customer experience, to gain the loyalty of customers, and to protect our renewal rate with the customers, if it's a subscription model or if they are ordering on a daily basis. So in order to do that, we have to bring in all the departments of the organization, entire enterprise together to serve the customer. It can't be just a duty of the contact center person or the last mile delivery person or just one single department. And when we are operating at scale, it becomes very important that we break the silos in between, we break the walls in between, and there should be sheer transparency across all the departments. We join hands of all the departments in the organization, all the functions in the organization to serve the customer. That should be just a single motto. And Abhinav mentioned very important point, with safety and also ensuring that our employees, our partners, our delivery partners are happy and motivated to do the work. So this is what we try to do with one single platform, purpose built to scale enterprises from one level to the next level. Thank you, Ramesh.
Thank you so much. I think it looks like one for all and all for one kind of a solution. Right, great. Now we move on to the next question to Mr. Abhinav Singh from Amazon. What are the technologies that assume immense importance and will rule out the traditional or conventional methods of delivery to bring the customer delight or satisfaction? Over to you, Mr. Abhinav.
I'll go back to the 4 pillars I mentioned earlier of safety, experience, reliability, and efficiency. So we spoke about on-road safety quite a bit, but the pandemic taught us a very new term. I personally had never heard of the term or used the term lockdown or social distancing. But we used machine learning and CCTV technology to be able to determine whether our warehouses have the right level of social distancing or not. We used Amazon proprietary technology called distance awareness, which basically draws a very simple technology. You walk in front of cameras with screens, they draw 2 green circles if you're 6 feet away. If you get closer, the circles become red with an audible alarm. So simple technology with simple ML to be able to determine whether we are socially distant and compliant in our warehouses. So when it comes to e-commerce, there is going to be a paradigm shift in the way traditionally deliveries have been done, because and this spills over into the second pillar. When a customer wants a delivery today, they want to be sure that it is safe, right? You want to make sure that the person who's coming to deliver at your doorstep is someone who is tested, vaccinated, the temperature has been tested, and that there are safe working practices in the warehouses that they're coming from. So that aspect of safety is also super critical. We spoke about customer experience and the experience at the doorstep. There is another dimension of that experience where technology helps us, and that's about the security from the perspective of you get what you ordered in the shape that you ordered it. We've all seen these sensational news stories about getting a brick instead of a phone and so on and so forth. In order to combat that, we built technology solutions which combine X-ray imaging at the time of ship out with tamper-proof packaging, OTP-enabled delivery, so that each step of the value chain is secure and the customer gets the package which is secured. And experience is not just limited to the customer, it's also delivery associate. Someone was speaking about delivery associate experience. We index a lot when we talk about last mile delivery on efficiency, unit economics, is the unit economics working out or not? But if you're building a routing system which is optimizing for stem distance, travel time, but is not taking into account restroom breaks or food breaks and accounting for those, then you're not taking care of the delivery associate experience. So that component of experience is also something that technology enables to say that, is my technology solution human ready? Or is it just a math problem that I'm trying to solve and find the shortest distance and the optimal route? When it comes to efficiency, we've spoken about routing efficiency, which is basically, sequencing the right packages, that I should go to place A, then place B, then place C. I can carry X number of packages safely, and this is the maximum time I should take. Ankit spoke about addresses in India. I'll give you an example. I'm sitting in the 24th floor, but you could type the name of this building in so many different ways. I could say World Trade Center, Rajajinagar, Malleshwaram, Bangalore. I could also say World Trade Center next to Rand Mall, Bangalore. Both the addresses are the same. How do systems normalize these addresses at the time of ingress and determine that I can route these two packages together, right? So address normalization, which is a different problem from geocoding, is also a big thing that is an efficiency enabler. And finally, reliability. You spoke about how the industry will be sort of transformed. In 2012, 2013, the USP of couriers used to be that we have track and trace, which was to say that we have a scan related event and we can tell you in 24-hour intervals where your package is. And it would be something like courier facility so-and-so city. Today's customer wants a lot more visibility and a much more intuitive visibility, right? So how do you build those visibility systems? And you see that in apps today, you order something, you can see the person's, on the map, X minutes to go, you can see exactly where they are. Compare this from a transformation perspective to once in 24 hours, we will give you a sort of accurate update. So along all four pillars of safety, experience, reliability, and efficiency, there is transformation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Avinav. Was truly, it's eye for detail through technology and with a lot of checks and balances. Wonderful. My next question goes to Aashutosh. How are the brands transforming last mile delivery and making it more agile for their business? Like you have electric vehicles, mobile apps, algorithms, both for small and large shipments. Your perspective, Aashutosh.
So I loved hearing Ankit speak about things which I literally hear on a day-to-day basis, right? So the driver will have an app, he will have Google Map in front of him, and then he will go wherever he wants, right? That sort of a thing. Or how Abhinay was also talking about how addresses are difficult, right? And and without being sort of religious about it, it's literally what Krishna said, right? Ki tu karta wahi hai jo tu chahta hai, hota wahi hai jo main chahta hu. तो वो कर जो मैं चाहता हूं, फिर होगा वही जो तू चाहता है. And loosely translated to Hindi, this is the entire approach how we need to optimize. We need to think like our delivery personnel, like our drivers, like our people who will finally get it executed on the ground, right? Without trying to give the best solution, right? And that is the whole cusp of it. We try to spend more time with them, and sometimes we are becoming myopic because of the knowledge that we have, and sort of the kind of problems that we have. And I have an example for this in Patna, in Old Patliputra Road. One of the addresses was Boring Road, Old Patliputra town, left from the cow post. And we thought this is a very ridiculous sort of an address, because how can you, the cow can move, right? Technically. So next to a cow, left from a cow post is a very silly way to give an address. But actually it was a tabela. So the guy was right, the tabela will be there, the cow post will be there. And it was a very, very optimized way than which he had explained, because the tabela was obstructing the view to the road. So the way I'm trying to, optimize in our company is trying to get into the mind of my delivery rider. When we try to literally go for a product solution, after the first cut requirements that the product manager does, we actually go on deliveries with our delivery person and trying to see it. And while there is nothing which can be idiot proof, because idiots are more idiotic than smarter people are smart, we need to at least ensure that it becomes more intuitive. We need to make it so that he wants it to happen. It actually believes that it makes his job easier.
Yeah, thanks, Santosh. I think it was wonderful. Now we like to call upon Mr. Sanjeev Mehta to share his perspective.
Look, I think Abhinav kind of summarized it extremely well. I think obviously most of the technologies will be a combination of routing, sequencing, because for us, we do bulk deliveries. So we even have to go in the level of how do we place them within a vehicle? Do I pack them or not pack them? Because a lot of customers insist on open box delivery. Slot planning, because a lot of fresh HoReCa customer insist on slot for us, vehicle planning, and obviously the next level of derivative products of integration of payments into delivery and value-added services like slots. So I think most of these technologies are becoming par. And the backbone of this, which is employee profiling, maintenance of vehicles, I think also that piece of technology is getting commoditized. I actually want to talk about one area where we need to spend a lot of time, and I think Aashutosh briefly touched about it. How do you actually make it very, very easy and intuitive for the final delivery person, the FE, to deliver, right? Most of our investments actually have gone into the cost side, and we tend to kind of forget about this aspect of technology. Something as simple as COVID-safe delivery. How do you actually put technologies for that, right? This is something with so much field force we had to do overnight, and without technology, you could not even think about this. Or how do you transform yourself for handling small packets to large packets? I think that's one axis. Second axis of technology is this flexibility that I talked about. So very simple things. My vehicle is becoming full. How do I kind of identify that upfront and do a short circuiting in supply chain? In fact, there are cases we actually use technology to kind of shape the behavior. Ki 800 kilo pack aapka vehicle hai, 600 kilo ho gaya hai. If you buy this 200 kgs more, I'll actually give you a discount of, for example, 0.5%. And I traditionally, completely about my traditional hub and spoke model. I think Sarvatha touched upon a very, very important point. A lot of this technology is about how do you plug into the external ecosystem easily? Because whether we like it or not, we will have disruptions. So on an ad hoc basis, can you plug into the external ecosystem? And fourthly, I think very important, safety. Safety at source, whether it is in the warehouses. So for example, hardware and software integration and preventive maintenance technology, and also safety of interaction with the customer. So I think, as I said, a lot of things, routing, sequencing, vehicle planning are par. A lot of focus has to go into the very intuitive aspects for the customer touch points and the backbone of that.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Now my question goes to Mr. Rajneesh. How to optimize the delivery of goods and identify solutions to lower fulfillment costs while enhancing the efficiencies? Over to you, Mr. Rajneesh.
So this is quite related to what is being spoken about, all this while in terms of what is, accurately identifying customer address. And, Ankeet covered it. Aashutosh ne to shairi share kar di thi uske upar, the kind of tabela and all that. So this is one big problem area. Seems to have been solved fully, but not yet. So this is one area wherein I'm sure a lot of work is still happening. And once that accuracy comes in, customer experience, cost optimization, everything comes into play. And the other piece, which is related to the first question of disrupting the e-commerce space, what good it is doing is the order density or the demand density is improving. The cost which used to be high for all of us who are into this play, with the density improving, this turnaround time and cost efficiency of say route optimization, these things are getting automatically taken care of. And this is where some of these companies, in the startup space, which can have completely and very dark red bottom lines, with soon this density and demand improving, we'll see that some of this unit economics start making sense, and which is where this entire bet is on. So route optimization, density improvement, accurate address mapping is some of the things which I see will definitely help. And then one is the green and sustainability part of it. There is, say, diesel and petrol vehicles today, fast moving to EV. So that will come in, that the cost efficiency itself will come together with some of these things which are not up to the scale today, but going forward, very rapidly, the entire ecosystem moves to EV, which is when the green part of it and the efficiency part of it, cost efficiency part of it, will be taken care as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rajneesh. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I think great insights. Now we move on to Sarvartha. The question is the same. So we need your perspective on the concept of you spoke on marginal utilization. Your perspectives on this, Sarvartha.
Thanks. I think honestly, everything that I've said is kind of covered in whatever has been discussed so far. But yeah, I mean, just to add a couple of things, I think I think we will have to figure out a way, and technology has to help us in this, right? As I said before, and Shikha talked about the mobile towers being utilized by different operators. I think somewhere down the line, we have to think of how to harness the power of available resources in the ecosystem rather than building something up from scratch, right? There is enough resources available in the industry. We have small players who are capable enough of doing a lot of things, but today where they lag is primarily the operational control and technology, right? Because that's what kind of takes or pulls them back in the overall race, right? So I think it's important that we kind of figure that out. On top of it, I think with all the things that have been covered already, I think one important piece which is very, very crucial is the role of network design. I think ultimately the way networks are designed and the way your supply and demand, I think Aashutosh talked about it, Rajnish talked about it, everyone spoke about it, right? I think it's very, very important that the right demand and supply clusters are mapped in such a way that the overall fulfillment time, the cost, all of that can be optimized. We have seen in examples where the right network design has given us almost 20 to 30% cost saving on the overall supply chain network. So if we kind of do it right, that's also will be something that will help us optimize for the cost of the overall ecosystem. So yeah, I think that's precisely what.
Thank you. Now over to Shikha. Would you like to please share in your views? Shikha, over to you.
Sure. No, I think everything has been, touched upon. I loved what Rubel talked about in terms of breaking the silos and really having a very consumer and customer-centric value network. And I loved the way Aashutosh and Abhinav and Sanjeev and Sarvatha also talked about, how do we make technology more human-centric? I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, think of it as an Indian subcontinent. We are seeing, of course, record unemployment that's cropping up now. Right. And how do we really create an ecosystem which creates well-being for not just our consumers and customers, but also our delivery partners? The executive who actually goes to those homes, rain, sun, storm. So how do you really create the right environment for the society, for the well-being of the larger nation? I think it could also be seen as a nation building activity in a lot of way. Yeah. And I know there of course there are certain limitations. For example, it would be a certain kind of workforce, right, which is able to operate EVs when they come up and when the infrastructure comes up, or whether it's safe for women to do that, or not just gender diversity, but diversity from an LGBTQ community. How do we make it more inclusive for people who do not have an opportunity today? I think it's a huge opportunity. The intent is right. The demand is high. Technology, is better than what it has been in the past. I think we just need to innovate in this space as much as we can. Sarvatha also talked about the network optimization, and we have seen that, even in Unilever, the way we position our factories, our warehouses, how do you really optimize? How do you, for example, do direct dispatches? Sanjeev talked about, I'm going to give you a 0.5% discount, but it's all about all that can happen in this space. And it can go beyond the purpose of just serving a business to actually serving the larger community and the well-being around it. So I think when we deal with this subject, while we deal with our top lines and our bottom lines, I think we also need to deal with the larger impact it can have on the society and on the people around us. I think that's the only thing I want to add here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think you broadly covered and pulled in a lot of points, which is usually otherwise not thought of. Now, over to Mr. Ankeet. Your views on time-bound deliveries for various vehicle types like ICE, EVs, etc.
Yeah, I think I really firstly want to comment on like what everyone talked about. I think it's pretty.
Sure. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I just want to also point out what Abhinav said, and I think I missed out that just machine and accuracy and that might not be the only thing that you want to put into what you when you plan. You want to kind of embed the human element there. And I think it will become even more important as we move to EVs, for example, as range anxiety. Imagine people running out of range and in the middle of trying to make a delivery. So planning becomes important. Adding the human element becomes extremely critical, and also not only the human element, also the safety element for the human that's actually going and delivering. These would get very critical as we move forward. Another point that I wanted to add was I think Aashutosh mentioned about deliveries in the hinterlands, and that's where communication of addresses is a huge issue. And basically a system that can just help communicating the address in a very simple way could ensure delivery. But yeah, I think from the point of having different vehicle types and making sure that those vehicle types match what the planning is doing, whether in real time or also in predictive time, whether it's tomorrow or the week after, that all comes to specific machine learning. And that machine learning has to happen on a base that is very accurate. So roads that are well maintained, road data that's well maintained, and traffic that is representative of what is actually happening at different times of the day, and at different events that take place, whether it is a religious event that happens or it is a weather prediction that's going to happen. So you probably want to account for all of that as you're accounting for the time that you will factor in for that delivery. So yeah, I second all of that, and I think most of it has been covered through the chat.
Thanks. Thank you. In the paucity of time, we have the last 10 minutes to go, and would have to restrict ourselves to a minute. Mr. Rubel, would you like to please chip in and share your views?
Sure. Thank you, Ramesh, and everyone. I guess great insights. I'd like to just, share some of the examples. One of the good, I really enjoy the job which I do because I get to meet a lot of great minds, a lot of customers across the industry segments. And one thing which I've learned in last 16 years of my, field experience meeting various customers is a lot of times we think and put a product into the market or any solution or service into the market. The insights are available on the ground. And it is very important for every business to empower the people on the ground to be able to share that insights back to the management so that you can improvise, you can pivot the business models and offer newer services. I'll cite that with two examples.
Sure.
So we were trying to implement around 7 years back, 6 to 7 years back, a field service management solution for a company which used to create weighing bridges in India. So across the industry, everybody was their customers. And we were talking about giving them 10, 15 options on the single page of the screen, locations, etc., right? Offline mode, online mode, because their customers used to be the cement plants, mining customers, etc., right? So you need the offline capabilities in the app. But while doing that, the managing director of that company said, look, I don't need more than 3 options on the screen because the people who are there, my field service agents, are all above 50 years of age. And that time, smartphones were not very common. So he said, the moment you put in more things onto the screen, these guys will not understand. And forget the 100% utilization of the solution. I want first it to pick up, then slowly will increase, right? So that is point number 1, after talking to them. Point number 2, another example, we implemented a similar solution for a washing machine organization across India and Southeast Asia. Now, the beautiful washing machine, it's selling like a hot cake. But suddenly from certain states and cities, they started getting a lot of complaints on that machine.
Okay.
And the challenge for that was that they didn't put a filter because, the areas like Rajasthan and where there are a lot of dust, etc., the machine parts were getting, corrupted because of, there was no layering or filter on top of it. And because of the solutions which are there on the ground where the technicians were able to send the knowledge back to the management, and they were able to analyze the cases which are coming, that why I'm getting more cases, why I'm getting more field service requests from these cases. They were able to do the problem management on top of it. And that helped them to, in the newer design, to change that thing and still win the customers and, serve the loyal customers. So these are the 2 examples which I thought I'll share with you. And that's where a single platform where there is machine learning, AI, low code, no code inbuilt into it, so that if the process is not out of the box available for us, if I have to create something which is very, very specific to my nature of business, the platform should be able to allow that. It shouldn't come and say, I'm purpose built for that. That time is gone. We need a platform which has got all the bells and whistles and the newer technologies, whether it is ML, AI, NLP, which, Abhinav mentioned about. Somebody can put the same address in 3 or 4 different ways. So we have been solving that problem in IT from a long time. Somebody will say my machine is not working. Somebody will say my Mac is not working. Somebody will say my laptop is not working. Somebody will say I'm not able to log in. End of the day, it is the same problem. So we have been solving it from a long time in IT, but from last 7-8 years, we have started solving it for the businesses as well. So just thought I'll share these examples.
Thank you, Mr. Rubel.
Thank you.
I think a quick question to Mr. Abhinav, not more than a minute, if not 2. Could you please elaborate on your I Have Space program? And you can also briefly talk about all women delivery stations, a model that is making gender diversity sustainable. Over to you.
Thank you so much. So I Have Space is at the heart a program to enable micro businesses, and these are neighborhood shops, to be able to deliver packages in the time that is typically a downtime for them. Think about your neighborhood shop. You see a very high footfall in the morning and probably in the evening, but the afternoons are fairly lean. So what we did is we worked with them to enable them with the right technology, whether it was from the point of view of onboarding, from the point of view of payments, from the point of view of their own experience, grievance addressal, and so on and so forth, and then train them in the right way to go make doorstep deliveries. From a business perspective, they're super efficient because it's a very small radius between 2 and 5 kilometers. They're very familiar with the area. They don't suffer from, or they don't need mapping solutions to find the right addresses because it's their neighborhood. And they potentially make deliveries in the locality anyway. So we have 28,000 such stores in 450 cities across the country.
Wow.
And over the years have had hundreds and thousands of success stories where entrepreneurs have not only doubled, but sort of made lifestyle and life changes in being able to support their families and upgrading their lifestyle, sending their children to higher education and so on and so forth.
Sorry to pause you here, Abhinav. Have you captured all these success stories in any format that could be replicated by others as well?
Yes. So from the perspective of the human stories, 100% we have. From the perspective of technology, it's a lot of intuitive technology which has been built in-house. So we don't externalize our technology per se, and we haven't bought it. So it's not readily replicable, but the journey is certainly something that we share quite openly and we talk about it in the media.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, sorry, you have a few more points to make?
Yeah, not in the hive space, but I do want to talk about diversity. I think that's one of the areas where we are super passionate as an organization from the perspective of leadership right up to the grassroots and ground level to build a diverse and inclusive organization. You spoke about all women delivery stations. We have 5 such delivery stations, but the real impact is the stories behind these and not just the number. I know of a delivery station personally in Chennai where the lady was an IT professional and 10 years she worked in the IT sector, wanted to do something of her own, got involved in the Amazon Delivery Service Partner Program, started with a single room delivery station with 3 associates. Today there are 20 associates and she's sort of doubled the size of her business. And
brilliant.
So those are the real stories where we are transforming lives, and not just limited to gender diversity, but also people with disabilities and military veterans. So all underrepresented cohorts, as we call them, in the corporate sector is something that is a real focus and drive area for Amazon in India.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. Aashutosh, would you like to just chip in on your views on attritions and on gender diversity?
So I totally agree to what Abhinay said, that, it has to be driven from the top. And I am also lucky to be part of the organization who wants to actually implement it right from the top, right up to the bottom. And we also used to struggle a lot with our higher attrition in the workforce that we have on the floor. And what we realized is that along with the compensation, having a more inclusive environment that is for the gender diversification, and also having benefits and making these employees feel a part of the organization is what has helped us. So having things like subsidized meal programs even within our warehouses, and not just warehouses, we have sort of extended the subsidized meals right up till our hubs, who are only 20 or 30 people strong, right? So we have ensured that they get subsidized meals, they get all the other benefits that we have. We have trust, we subsidize their education of their family members, the education, the healthcare. We also have insurance and even medical insurance for our gig economy workforce, the guys who go on the last mile and deliver in case of any accident. So these are the ways. So one is obviously the whole salary part and the compensation aspect. The other is covering them up, giving them benefits, and trying to make it more inclusive for them. So that's what.
Thanks. Thank you. I'd like to bring in Rajnish, your perspective on the HR policies and its bearing on retention.
Yeah. So. Firstly, just 30 seconds on the diversity piece, So,
sure.
So while while the focus continues on having more and more women in the delivery piece, and we do not really get too many profiles there, but there are 100 of hub operations that we carry out. So our endeavor is to ensure that diverse and differently abled individuals, if they can be enrolled in running hub operations, is what our there are a couple of hub operations which we run is totally managed by women.
Sure.
And then, we seek profiles of differently abled with the kind of hub operations they can carry out. So this is one piece. In terms of incentive programs, so this is delivery boys, as even Aashutosh was reflecting, there's a massive attrition there. Given the kind of disruption you've seen in the space, attrition is but obvious. There are many companies that are coming in. I think it's all about the human angle to delivery heroes, as we call them, right? If there are just a digital entity in the system which is available on demand and delivering parcels here and there is no human touch to their needs, their whatever demands that are there. So
Sure.
what we see in terms of HR business partners in every region, we have a personal connect with these guys. So they operate from our hub operations hub. So they have that connect. Once that connect is there, the company culture touches them. The company incentive programs touches them, and we have seen a massive difference to the attrition. This particular human policy, HR policy angle that brings to the fore for these, these stakeholders who are so very important to this ecosystem.
Thank you, Mr. Rajneesh. Now to Sarvatha. You believe that fundamental problem is about creating supply for roles, and you don't think incentive can be sustainable solution for these problems. Your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fundamental way, if I look at it, is and I zoom in a little bit more on this problem. I think there is a mismatch in the way these jobs are being perceived in the country. I think I did speak to someone, a female employee, and I asked her, delivery कर सकते हैं आप? तो she said, नहीं sir, वो door to door जाके delivery करना मुझे तो अच्छा नहीं लगता, right? And I think somewhere or the other, if it surprises me, how on one side we have huge unemployment issues, and on other side we kind of not able to get enough people to work on these roles, right? I think this needs to be fundamentally solved, right from changing the mindset with respect to these jobs, and I believe institutionalizing vocational trainings, like the way we have polytechnics for the plumbing and everything else. I think we should have something like that here as well, because until we do that, we create that mindset, we create that ecosystem that can generate a lot more people, for working in this domain. I feel this problem will continue to stay. And I mean, this attrition, this incentives and all of this that we try to retain some of the talent. I think the problem is typically the demand supply mismatch, right?
Thank you all so very much. It's been truly a great pleasure, and it was phenomenally insightful session. And many thanks, Swada, Economic Times. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for the detailed discussion. Thank you, Mr. Venkat, for covering all the important angles around the topic. I hope you all are finding these sessions informative and are filtering out the learnings. Use the hashtag ETRetailSCS and share these learnings with your friends and colleagues.